Here we are again. I'm Andrew. I'm this talking head who is with you at this moment. And wouldn't you know it, it is raining today. I am very happy about that. And on a completely unattached note to, what I'm here trying to talk about, I gotta say, the lack of rain this winter and spring has been really upsetting to me. I mean, never in my life in Victoria, and I've lived here for a long time, decades, have I ever seen a winter and a spring with less rain. The clouds come in, but they're like endless partly cloudy days, and rain doesn't come. It's a little warmer, yes, but this lack of rain, I don't know, it's very strange. So to wake up this morning and see the streets wet, and to see the sky gray, and I see the rain coming down outside, it does my heart good. It does my heart good. Even though yesterday, after I did all this and went on with my day, it was beautifully sunny, and I enjoyed a really hot sunshine moment as well. Anyway, it's funny actually. Yesterday, the last few times I've come, I've been talking about this dream temple, and I realized that even talking to you about it creates a great amount of self-consciousness in me, and nervousness, and even fear, because it is the essence, the secret heart of what I'm talking about. And so to give it to you on the internet, I get this vibration coming from my shadow, which tells me that I don't know what it tells me, but it makes me aware. And my awareness as a kind of vibration lights up all of the old places of tension inside of myself, all the places where all the shame, humiliation, violent suppression, inertia, brutality, the blunting of the fine instrument of being, which happens to us all in certain ways, some more and some worse than others, some more intensely than others, right? And then the way the blunted instrument then becomes our compromised self, which then unavoidably creates the world, and we become unconscious agents of a negative conditioned response, because we create the world that we live in. And so if we get crushed into a particularly negative place, we create a negative world around us. And that's just the way it is. That's the way energy is. And that's kind of paradoxical. And if you think about what life could be, and it's seeking for what life could be, which is the greatest piece of ourselves. And the reason why I'm doing this, the reason why I'm putting this on the internet here, is that I am giving you something which is going to outlast me. The dream temple is now going to be here long after I am dead. And that gives me a strange feeling. Not a good feeling, not a bad feeling, just a strange feeling, because that's what eternity feels like. It's just strange. It's inexplicable. It's inevitable. And we're in it. And we're unavoidably a part of it. And so much of our society is designed to detach us from that. And I don't know why, but I don't want to get caught up in the negativeness of it. I think this is a time when all of us have to shine. This internet, this beautiful evolutionary tool, allows everyone to shine, and we should all be shining. This internet should be full of everyone doing what it is they do best, whatever it might be, whatever it might be. That's the point. And so this is my piece. This is my piece. And so when I'm talking to you about the dream temple, I'm talking about, for me, my own personal realization, which I'm giving to you as a kind of way of thinking, a way of looking at yourself and life around you, because life is a dream temple. Life is a temple of dreams, a temple, a place of celebration, a place of possibility. And somewhere along the line in our evolution, we have escaped the chains of survival. The chains of mere survival do not affect us now. They do not. The way our society is right now, the earth already feeds and houses us many times over. The reason it doesn't, the reason why there is still war and hardship and starvation and homelessness is a breakage in our society. And it's a breakage which has to happen because only collapse and breakdown, breaking apart, movement to chaos will allow something new to happen. And we are definitely in a time of chaos. There is chaos now. The old paradigm is broken. It's broken apart. Stuff is growing up in the cracks that were once a solid single center that for 2,000 years moved forward. And that's over now. And now what? And it's difficult. It's difficult to encapsulate because conditioned response is not just in ourselves. Conditioned response is also in society. Society and all of the zombie practitioners of the conditioned response of society are designed to just blunt you, beat you into submission, force you to not be free inside, to not feel your love inside, but instead decide that you're in hell. And I don't use that term lightly because look around us. It's called a pandemic of mental health. It's called a crisis of addiction. This is all going on. It is all going on. And why is it going on? It's going on because people are losing energy or disconnected from energy, not able to access their higher being inside, not able to do that. Why is that? It's because our society is a blighted and despairing wasteland. I can say that because all the decades of my life, I'm owning my mistakes, of course, but as someone who is now healing and learning, all I can say is all the way along, no one helped me. And I couldn't ask for help, of course, right? But now that I look back, I wonder, well, who could have helped me? Because the help I needed was to break out from within. The help I needed was who I am now, ironically, which was the part of me that was suppressed, brutally suppressed when I was little, crammed into a shape. And that shape then began to manifest life in the manner of that shape. But it was a false shape. It was a fraudulent shape. And now that I am in my whole being, I cannot speak about my own healing without speaking about the abominable degradation in our society. You know what I mean? But I don't want to dwell there because that is just an endless avalanche of negativeness. When I am here to shine and do nothing but shine. And the irony is that the greater I shine, the more, because shining is also vibration, the more I vibrate, the higher my vibrational frequency, or lower, or however you want to understand going within, it's like I never cease to vibrate through all of my conditioned responses. It's just that I've learned to not react and to proceed anyway. you know? And so when I talk to you about Dream Temple, I'm talking to you about a different way to visualize life, a different way to visualize yourself, a different way to visualize what we're all doing here. And that's what I'm going to leave. When I'm dead and gone, this talking head is still going to be here, like it or not, you know, because nothing ever dies in the internet. It's there forever, or it will be there as long as the internet persists. And if this is indeed an evolutionary tool, as I feel it is, then we should be loading it with the very best, the very, very best of what we've got to give. And this is the very best that I've got to give. And my only guide for that is how I feel inside. And this is what I needed to know when I was younger. This is a perspective I needed. If I had met myself, I don't know, 50 years ago, if I could have been with myself all the way along, I think my life would be very different. And that where I am now would be in a very different place, right? But at the end of the day, whatever wakes you up, whatever brings you into the moment, whatever that is, however long it took to get here, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. My whole life, the decades of my life, was a prelude to being here. And now I'm a connoisseur of the mistakes that I made. And so I'm someone who I don't have any kind of like perfected facade that I can show you. I'm just someone who has made an avalanche of mistakes, and somehow I've come through it, and I'm still alive. And so what I've got to give you now is the testimony of someone whose life was completely derailed by the kind of conditioned response that's going on all the time. That's going on all the time, every day, when I'm trying to help in the field of mental health and addictions. It goes on every day in the streets. It goes on every day in every aspect of our culture, you know? And most people are unconscious to it and don't care about it, who are indifferent at best, which is peculiar, you know? Just enough pleasure so that you're indifferent to your own humanity. It's very, very strange, you know? And so to offer a view which is in essential opposition to that gives me a strange feeling. Gives me a strange feeling. Not a bad feeling, and not a good feeling, but a strange feeling. And I want to give it to you in an image right now. And it's this. When I'm talking about the Dream Temple, I'm talking about loving. Everything I've talked in my healing journey is about loving. Loving. Being loving is the essence of what life is. At the same time, dying is what life is. And loving and dying is the nature of what life is. And only together can we come to a sacred consciousness. And that is what I mean when I talk about the Dream Temple, a kind of sacred consciousness of being alive. Being alive is a sacred experience. It just is. Every minute you're alive is a sacred experience because you have the choice to understand that we are here to love ourselves and love one another, and we are also here to die, which is weird. And if you look at either of them separately, you know, the way the scientific method wants us to do it is to break things down, right? Then that's a ticket to despair. But together, which is paradoxical and yet true, then we can live fully, integrated, whole, and meaningful. This is the essence of it. Dream Temple is sacred living. That's what makes me nervous to talk about it, because it's the one thing I needed. It's the one thing which heals me. It's the one thing which inoculates me against the conditioning. And also, the conditioning that I'm confronted to when things happen around me in the world that I live in, it's my choice how I interact, but it's not often my choice what comes to me. You know what I mean? It's paradoxical again, of course, because if you've got a momentum in your life, sometimes you're just going to have to be in the middle of hardships. Sometimes you're just going to have to be in the middle of crisis, in the middle of chaos, and find somehow the way to sustain loving and also dying. Only together can you understand what it means to be alive. And only when you have these two functioning parts together, unified, even though they are paradoxical, it seems, only when they are unified can you find that secret golden thread which leads you through your life. Intelligence is there. Intelligence is in the union of these apparent opposites. Because only in the union of opposites, which the mind cannot accept, is liberation and freedom of energy being. And intelligence is there. Boundless intelligence is there. All the solutions for any problem you may encounter is right there. And the only thing against that is conditioned response. Conditioned response in individuals, conditioned responses in our society, in our societies at large around the globe. Whew. So, for example, I talked to you about the dream temple. It makes me very nervous because I'm like, because it's not rational, of course. And so in my quiet moments, all that old conditioned response, the nagging voice of just shut up and don't be heard because you're a disaster. It's like there's only one answer. And then when I begin to, meditate on that answer, I go through these weird experiences. Like yesterday, I spent a couple hours meditating. And meditating for me still takes on this aspect of like, I don't know, I go through these contortions. My face contorts. It's like the more I uncrust, the more I loosen, the more my vibration, my true and harmonious vibration, like the ringing of a bell, happens inside of me. I experience these contortions, like contortions of former unexpressed emotion. It just goes through me. It goes through my face especially. My face is like the final frontier, as I said the other day, of my healing journey. The attempt to have no face, the attempt to have no presence, the attempt to hide, the attempt to not be seen because I'm just so shameful and disastrous. It's crazy. Of course it's crazy. But I mean, conditioned response, I work in a field where I'm trying to help people who are, in non-clinical terms, crazy, But what's happened, if we take that label away, all it is trauma conditioned, toxic and unhealthy responses to overwhelming influences that are brutalizing and negative. And these sensitive, magical people were unable to cope. And now what do we have to do? We got to care for them, I wonder what would have happened if we had a society in which there was some way to honor what they're going through. If there was a temple that they could go to and just bring all their experiences and not be judged and not be condemned and not be isolated, not be alone in it, but be somehow encouraged, what is the experience, because it's a breakage of the mind that they're experiencing, it's a breakdown. That is the breakdown of every trauma-induced conditioned response. It's a mental breakdown. And our society is in the middle of a colossal cultural, societal, mental breakdown. We've broken from the past, and we are not yet in the future. We're in this living moment. And it's so crazy, and it's so chaotic, and there's just so much brutal negativeness being driven into us, vended to us by the evil of some few people, these vampires who seek nothing but to take and convince everyone that the only solution is in their materialist nothingness. It's nothing. That's why there's so much despair in our world. When you use that word despair, I definitely despaired when I was younger. That led me to my worst crisis in life, was despair. The pressure was too much. I didn't have any ability to cope. I didn't think I was good enough. I thought I was a shameful mess inside. I had no resources. And the crushing responsibilities of life, and my inability to see what I was doing or just stop and get real inside myself led me to terrible experiences. And somehow that I'm still alive. and what I can say to you is that loving and dying together were always the solution. And so when I talk about the dream temple, I mean, this life is a temple of dreams. So why are we living in a nightmare? It's because each of us have allowed that conditioning to make up our minds for us. And that's pretty strange. It is pretty strange. At the end of the day, after all is said and done, I can only live my life and live my love and do what feels right to me. And this is what I'm doing. And I accept all these contortions, as I'm in my peaceful place, because every time I go through it, every time that cleansing vibration comes through me, every time it runs a little clearer, a little cleaner, a little purer, a little less affected by all that negativeness that I lived cowed by for so many years. And so life is a dream temple. Life is a temple of dreams. Never forget that. We're all going to die. Life is the trauma that none of us escape. All the other traumas are just little tiny aspects of the great and final trauma of our death. And because we don't understand, and our society wants us to ignore it and not be aware of it, only through that ignorance are we manipulable and susceptible to the idea that we can just live only in a hollow fantasy projection of what is. And this is the problem with the internet, is we're all getting sucked into the internet, and so much of it is just this hollow fantasy projection, right? Oh, perfect ideation. Oh, let's all have perfect ideation. And anything which does not harmonize with perfect ideation, we're just going to cancel it. That's like ultimate censorship. And out here in the real world, it can't happen. It's starting to happen, Scotland passed some kind of hate speech law. It's like, judged by whom? We have to be able to talk. If we cannot express ourselves and we become subjected to the judgments of a few and the rest are censored, we are on a pathway to destruction. It's going to happen in Canada very soon as well, right? And of course, the moment that you get into that polarizing dialogue, then it's like, oh, you are also a hate vendor. It's like all or nothing. You know what I mean? That's not what life is, right? Life is a whole spectrum. This is what our gender flexible reality is showing to us, that life is a spectrum. And even those old-fashioned, old paradigm, fear-mongering haters are a part of our world. They're a part of our spectrum. And by censoring them, you are not including them. They must be included. We got to somehow include them in the dialogue. Equally, like we need to hear more about what the experience of the gender flexible is. There has to be a meeting in the middle, which isn't just a condemnation and a censorship, you know? I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. And to get caught up in it is to just lose my moment in the negativeness of other people's conditioned responses. Because no group is purely bad and no group is purely good. Every group has got the good and the bad and the ugly. It's just the way people are. People are in any grouping. There is no perfect group. There is no perfectly evil group. It's just, these are ideological distinctions which we need to be aware of. And the only way I can be aware of it is, what did I say? Loving and dying together are the only way to feel truth flow in your life. It's not an appearance, it's not a surface, and yet it is just a surface, but it's a surface which is offered with the knowledge that it's only that, just a surface. All that I can offer you is the surface of what I'm presenting to you. And I'm aware that I don't know shit, you know, that my speck is nothing but my light, the fire that I have within, the loving energy intelligence, which I can unlock and give to you in the hopes that the vibration can loosen you and set you free in the way that I feel set free inside of myself. So, it's got something to do with not just light, but darkness, you know? They're together, always, you know? This is why I think I look back in my life and I wish that I'd maybe joined the army or the armed forces somewhere, or that I got into a fight club, because I have a lot of darkness inside me. That doesn't mean I'm evil. It means that I have got tremendous capacity and energy to get things done. And in the armed forces, I believe that's a place where you get to you get to explore that part of yourself, you know? And I'm not trying to glorify war. What I'm trying to acknowledge is that, especially for men, as I understand men, but there's many women who also feel this in themselves. I mean, look at the fight sports these days. You know, women are fierce fighters, right? So I understand that even though I'm a man and I speak in the male dimension, that's how I identify. Therefore, my language is always going to be masculine in nature. It's like that fierce, dark energy that we have to just get things done. You know what I mean? It needs healthy expression, you know? Every man's hero is a badass. Every man is a badass. We're all badasses, you know, at some level inside of ourselves. It's just a question of how we relate to that, you know? That's how I feel about it anyway. I'm not trying to give concrete, you know, forever and all-time definitions. I'm just telling you how I feel about it, you know? All my heroes are badasses. And they're all badasses from like World War II or Vietnam or Korea or whatever it was. I was grown in the old paradigm. And yet I live in the chaos of its ending. I was the first generation. They called us Gen X. We are the first generation to be marinated in the old paradigm and yet live in the absence of it. I think that's why we've been given a letter, and all the generations after that have been given letters, because what do you do in this chaos of the destruction and collapse of the old paradigm? Gen X was the first generation that gets a variable as its title. We're like a variable factor. Well, what now? What do we do? What do we do having been entrained and conditioned in this old paradigm? What can we do when it's gone? What do we do? This is where we find ourselves. Again, I needed myself to guide me. In all those years ago, I needed myself to guide me. I needed loving and I needed dying to help me. And I'd never had it. And so as a result, I was lost and I despaired, you know? So again, I would have advised my younger self to immediately find some place where you can find a healthy venue for your dark capacity to get anything done that needs to be done. We all have it. Maybe it is the dark side. Maybe it is an evil side, you know, because in war, it's about killing other people. It's about killing the enemy. You know what I mean? And it's like my perspective now, notice, you know, it's like loving and dying. It's like, where does killing exist in that? I suppose in an extreme encounter, it would be what would happen if someone came at me. I wouldn't attack, but I would definitely defend myself. And yet being able to defend myself is something that has come at a high price of wasteland, lost years, non-living. I think if I've been in a fight club and like been in it would have just been good for me. I think if you got a fierceness inside you, got to find a way to give it a healthy outlet. There was no healthy outlet in my world. So all the dark side of myself did was just fester and become like just arise in ways that I was unconscious to, you know, and that led to all the disasters and mistakes of my life, you know. I think that some kind of military service is probably real helpful for lots of people, even now. And yet, as I say that, consider the breakage between our society and our armed forces. You know, the reason I didn't go into the armed forces is because I didn't see anyone I valued going into them. It seemed a place where only social refugees went. I say social refugees to say that like no one who I respected went there. You know, the very few people I learned about seemed to be the people who just couldn't cope in society. You know what I mean? And yet I look back now and I realized I couldn't cope with society either. So maybe that's where I should have gone, right? Or to learn something. Instead, I had to learn it the long, hard, miserable way of just so many mistaken choices born out of the unconscious ignorance that the harsh, brutal conditioning had on me. Because just because I invoke the dream temple doesn't mean I'm saying that life is going to immediately become easy. Doesn't mean life is without life and death. It's just a different way to be in it. Treat it as a sacred experience, and then everything will change for you. It has changed for me. Therefore, life is the dream temple. Existence is the dream temple, which is to say it exists within. And what we have within is how we create the world around us. I live in a dream temple, and therefore my moments are a celebration. Let your life be a celebration, and be sure to put it on the internet, because we need this now. We need you. We need me. We need everyone around us to vibrate at a higher frequency, because society is nothing more than the relationship between individuals. And the only way that colonialism and its abomination of a descendant, which is this plutocratic, it's not even capitalism I'm arguing about, because business is in its right place in the marketplace, which is like a small part of society, right? In its place, contained, it is a healthy and good part of our world. But the commodification of human beings and human life and human sacred experience is the abomination. And the way that it perpetrates itself is divide and conquer, keep us all isolated, keep you thinking that the only solution is the products that it vends to you, which give nothing. Give nothing in the end. This is why despair and suicide and mental health and addiction are the ever-rising crisis of our times. And the only solution is living and loving, healing, evolving, dreaming, and dying. As the only solution is the union of these opposites in living being, which is to be alive to your sacred moment and to live your life in the dream temple the Creator has given to you and me and everyone, even the horrible overlords. And look at how they're choosing to use it. Like, that's disgusting. And yet it's a disgustingness which is also the way some people are choosing to denigrate this temple of dreams that we're living in. This is the dream that they want to vend, the dream of their materialist exaltation and this enslavement of the rest of us. That's their dream. Doesn't feel like a dream to me. It feels like the dark fantasy of some wretched creature who's trapped in their own conditioned response, who's unable to love themselves and unable to love the world. And to dwell on them and listen to them is only to bring ourselves down into their domain. Even though we live in their domain because they've got the power. And yet, how we respond to it is the essence of living. Be in the dream temple of this life. This life is the dream temple. I sound like a preacher now. and I don't know. It's like, I just got to give this intensity to you. I've got to give this intensity to you. It is important. You must listen. Because in the end of the day, I'm not telling you to do anything but find your own way in life. Find your own loving, your own acceptance of your own dying. Bring them together in your life and find what that unlocks for you, because it unlocks loving energy and intelligence in my life. And whatever comes my way, however I'm going to get battered by life, I know now that it's not going to change me. I'm going to die. I'm going to die in the grace of my loving energy being. Why am I given this day of life right now? Why hasn't Spirit taken me today? I got another day. What I'm going to do with it? I'm going to talk to you about this. I do lots of other things as well. Today's music night, so we're going to play some music, and I'm going to definitely dance with the infinite and the eternal being as best I can for another day. And then we'll see what I got to bring you tomorrow. But today, I really wanted to be honest about my own process, because this is healing journey. I'm talking about healing, evolving, dreaming journey. And really, the ultimate is this life is a temple of dreams. And this internet seems to be evolutionary to me, and therefore I want to respect it. I want to leave something meaningful, or I want to leave something that feels important. And the importance is something that's beyond me, because this is what I needed when I was little. I needed to realize that life is a temple of dreams. I always knew it. I always knew it. When you wake up inside, it's not like you discover something new. It's something you've always known your whole life. And yet it was suspended, like suspended animation, because everyone around you told you it wasn't true. Bam, bam, bam. And then you begin to, you become convinced, or I did. I was just some weakling patsy. I never had the strength to say, no, you are wrong, parents. You are wrong, school. You are wrong, society. I could never say that. I was like, okay, something's wrong with me, right? And then I began to create that horrible, lowly, despairing world that I was crushed into thinking was real. But now I will say it, the paradigm is wrong, and our education system is in many ways wrong. Our society's solutions are wrong. And we are living in the chaos of the reality. Our reality is the chaos of that wrongness, being unable to help anybody. And so now we are living all in our isolated worlds of mental illness and addiction and increasing suicide. And our media just goes, oh, why is it happening? Because they, being media, being part of the status quo, cannot speak against it. So this is where the internet is beautiful, is because it's an evolutionary tool. We can all talk about it. We can all individually get our stoke on and communicate our stoke and have a union of our stoke, our loving energy. And it can exist. And this will exist long after I'm dead and gone, unless the internet itself collapses, in which case we're going to be in some other reality that I can't conceive of. But right now, it feels to me that the only way forward is to be loving, be healing, be evolving, and be dreaming. And that in itself leads to a kind of one-sidedness, unless you realize that you're also dying. Then you realize that no matter what you say about it, you can't get caught up in it, because it's just one more piece, you know? This is not the end. This is simply a platform to go on, you know? By acknowledging all of my trauma affected places inside, I'm merely acknowledging the vibration as it moves through them. I have reorganized myself in the proper alignment. I have realigned myself. I've gone through an alignment shift, as Carlos Castaneda would put it. It happened years ago. My assemblage point moved and I created a different world. I am living in a different world. And how I would say it to you is that life is a temple of dreams. I think I've circled around that enough today. But you see, this is the thing about it, is that when you realize there's your loving energy gesture, which is infinite, right? And then you realize that you're dying. And so this moment is the thing that's important. I'm always left thinking, did I say enough? Did I say the right thing? Did I truly give something that might change someone's life for the better? And I can't be sure of that. And so I end up circling and going around and around and around, you know? So I'm willing to say I've said my piece for today. And I hope out there, if you got something going on, something has maybe tickled you inside, made you come alive to something that maybe will make you more loving and more aware, more able to generate your own stoke, get into something for real in your life, feel better. On that note, be well. And this is my reaching. I am the change I want to see in the world. And so unto you I say, keep reaching.